All right, I got the gallery view. You guys got gallery view. You can all see each other.
Yeah, see everybody. That's how we do it.
I love it. Well, hey, I'll start it off. We'll just do a quick little breakthrough so we can get into some good information on breathing performance and kind of things that we're all seeing from parts across the country right now and what we all do. But obviously, I'm Harvey Martin for the people who are going to be listening to this, and the founder of MindStrong. Taylor, you've been on the podcast with us and communicated with us through some performance techniques over the last couple of months. Brian's obviously one of the co-creators and co-founders of MindStrong as well. Has done some XPT adventures on his own path. And then obviously we all have a lot of connections within our networks of what we do. And I think it's really unique and special to dive in. I'll give you guys take a moment and just give a little tidbit as well, but we'll focus this sort of this session on stress, adaptation, breath, and then your mind and what's kind of happening in the current situation. What are some nuggets, some golden nuggets that people can take with them? And let's try to enhance some humans. So Taylor, take it from there. Just a quick little breakdown of what the things you got going on and what you're doing right now and studying inside of performance.
Yeah, so I'm own my own company, Symmetry, down in Memphis, Tennessee. XPT coach. Been really focused on stress management, getting to change people's relationship with stress, how they deal with it, learning to use it as a tool to grow from and not necessarily be scared from. Really use your breath to learn how to handle it, to respond to it instead of just react. And I've been putting on a lot of workshops, do a lot of contrast therapy, pool workouts, breath focus workouts, breath work. Since everything's happened, that's all canceled. So I've been doing a lot with virtual breath classes pretty much daily. Started off stress management, have one this afternoon in a couple hours. It's just breathing for better health. Did one this morning, kind of a wake up and breathe. So started it with stress and then really showing people what else you can do using that breath as a tool to upregulate, downregulate, and really help control your nervous system.
How are those virtuals going?
They're good. They've been a lot of fun. It's still learning along the way.
Yeah.
So I've been doing them for free, but started charging here this week and allowing, basically if somebody can't afford, they can come do it for free. All first responders, healthcare workers get to do it for free. And then I'll do about a 45-minute class, 45-minute class, and then send them the recording so they can have later.
Oh, nice, man. Very cool.
It's a great thing about Zoom. Let it record everything, and then you can just send it out.
Yeah. And it's easy. And I've proven to be able to execute the Zoom circuit. So there we go. Brian, how about you down there? What do we got?
What we got rolling right now? Obviously, I'm still training for football. So I train in the mornings, do a session with another NFL guy and another guy, one of my buddies I train with. But I do breath work every morning when I wake up. I do about a 10 to 15 minute protocol for the most part. It's kind of based on how I feel. But super ventilation, breath holds, more Wim Hof than anything. But then do the cold shower, then I go train for about 2 hours. And then I get into my daily life, whether it's responsibilities and errands. But I'm learning right now. I'm maximizing my time at home. I'm working on getting CSCS certified. And then obviously I paint for an hour. I try and be creative. I do a little bit of this and that.
100%. Yeah. And I obviously have a front row seat to his progression, Taylor, as we talk very often. But I wanted to center around a lot of stuff today. Brian and I can kind of come at it from our viewpoints and feed off each other. But from a lot of what you do in terms of helping people control state, Taylor, from mental, emotional levels in the breath, I know as we were talking earlier today, can you sort of dive in to create a foundation for people who are going to listen to this about the autonomic nervous system and the importance of breath and sort of that voluntary type control of what we have?
Yeah. So as I was saying, when we first started, the breath is really the only thing in our body that is autonomic yet under our control. It's the first thing we do, last thing we do, and it keeps us alive. But it's under our control for a reason, and that's because it changes our physical and emotional state, and it's a tool that we can use. And it's a tool that, most people haven't ever learned how to use it. I know I didn't learn how to use it for, years, till well into my 30s. And it's just, as you play with it, you can learn how to quickly drop out and, take yourself out of a situation instead of just reacting, responding. But it's also, it's like anything, and it takes practice. It is a practice and something you have to focus on and work on. Like Brian was saying, he gets up and does breath work every morning. I do the same thing. And it's, for people first getting into it, like, I don't have time. Right now, I'm telling people just spend 1 minute out of every hour focusing on your breath. Start recognizing your triggers. What causes you to get into that stress state, which causes you to get that overwhelming, anxious feeling in your head, and trying to figure that out. Watch what happens to your breathing patterns as they change. You start breathing into your upper chest, start slowing it down, breathing through your nose, slowing your exhales down, getting that horizontal breath into your belly as opposed to the vertical breath up into your chest, and really just, see what triggers you. And right now is a great time. We have space to do that. Watch it. Are you on the news all the time? How are you physically responding to that? You feel tightness in yourself, kind of, bottled up, or, what helps you, gives you a little joy as well. So try to recognize that as you're going throughout the day right now. I mean, we have enough people have time to where they can focus on those things. We're not just necessarily stuck in the rat race at the moment. We're given a little time to where we can do some introspection and then take it and write it down, Yeah. I know you're big on asking yourself questions and doing stuff like that. And I think that's a great idea, journaling and choosing the questions you ask yourself, and, pick something each morning, what's bringing you joy right now? What are you resisting? Things like that, I think, are great tools to use.
One of the coolest things that you're saying right now, and what I've learned just through my trip, again, like, I didn't learn about how to breathe or ways to manipulate my breath until I was 27 years old, and I've been in professional sports for 5 years already. And it's definitely not taught at the professional sports level, at least in the NFL. But like the simplest thing you said is the awareness to the breath. Like, the first thing I learned once I started practicing breath holds and free diving protocols and Wim Hof and things like that is that it's not your lungs that need the oxygen, it's the tissue. And as athletes, the quicker you can learn that, and the quicker you can understand, like, again, the tempo and the pace of your breath. Like, that's why I think XPT and MindStrong and whoever is engaging in honing that tool of breath, I think that's just the biggest step, is that simple awareness that you don't need to pant to fill your lungs. Not your lungs that is the goal. So, like, for me, I thought that was just cool with what you said. I think super applicable to athletes and anybody. Obviously, it's just a simple, once you realize just the depth of your breath, the width, all these things, even we always talk about the pace and breaths per minute and things along those lines, MindStrong. But I just think that the first step is that little awareness, and then that's when it starts to snowball, and you start to use it as this crazy tool to manipulate and enhance performance. And then bam, you're a dog. Then you can breathe and outwork the next and that's why I take it and chase as many edges as I can, and then I get competitive with it. So I just think that's cool, where everybody will be able to take what you're saying, and just once they take that initial trust step and listening to what you're saying, man, that's where I sunk my teeth in. I know a lot of people will love it.
Yeah, I think that obviously I'll give my little tidbit, so we kind of all throw a philosophy into the ring here, and then we can take that broadness and hopefully create something simplified for people who are listening, right? So I look at what both you guys are saying, and it's very disciplined, right? The thing that we're talking about, we are talking about a muscular part of the body. Like, it's something that I think that even though it's automatically happening and it does control a lot of your systems, that's highly important to understand. That would sort of motivate an individual to discipline this as like a priority of their life, right? But the thing that's very intriguing is that your diaphragm is a muscle, and you can strengthen that. The hard part of it, like, you look at people who put that into the forefront of their focus as a strength and conditioning or general pop, is you strengthen that, you notice balance throughout your life at a physical level and then a mental level, right? And you're trying to create skill development just like anything else, and I think that not only should we motivate ourselves at a health level of what breath can do in terms of the autonomic nervous system and those sort of things. Obviously, the meditative side, I think, going to Taylor, how you alluded towards us asking each other questions and asking people questions, it has a lot to do with you get the opportunity to get outside of life as you know it, and you can observe things, right? So you can look at breath meditatively, and you can see yourself and kind of quantify for your own self-awareness. How have I evolved? How have I become more wise with my decision making, my choice making? Then you can look at it as like the cellular strength side of it, and then mechanically, right? And so I think something that we need to do a good job, Brian, to get to your point, is with professional athletes, is showing them that this is a muscle like a bicep. This is a muscle like a quad or a hamstring. The issue we run into is, if you can't see that thing strengthening as a human, it doesn't correlate with you as progress. Like we can see other things. So I think uncovering a lot of these blankets for people and bringing that to the forefront of mindfulness or awareness is both of what you guys were just talking about. And I think that that's what will be exciting to sort of dive into as well.
Yeah, I love that aspect. It is a muscle. It's our main breathing muscle. And like any other muscle, it needs to be progressively overloaded and worked to make stronger. Right. If you make it stronger, it's going to make all your other physical activities a lot easier.
For sure.
At the end of a workout or competition, when everybody else is laid out on the ground, you might be just standing there feeling A-okay, like you've crushed them all, but you're feeling good. It makes it easier to recover from working out, physical activity, and it keeps your mind in a stable place along the way too. Yeah. Takes those ups and downs and just levels them out when you do a lot of breath work, I feel like.
Absolutely. So to kind of center this towards what the current state of society is right now, and kind of take some of the things that we've learned and hopefully push those nuggets out in the universe where people can leave here with something where is tangible to them. In your field, Taylor, you see a wide variety of athletes, general pop, all sorts of environments. When you look at breath and taking your coaching and just sort of tailor the language towards a general situation of society right now, what do you think is the main topic or takeaway? You've already mentioned like find a minute and an hour a day to focus on your breath. Can you go deeper into something like that and sort of how to decrease the slump of not noticing that if you're not usually routined into focusing on breath work? Because that could seem overwhelming if you're starting at square zero of never being aware of breath work. What are some of the things that you would guide somebody in to dive deeper into creating that discipline and that level of awareness?
First thing I have people do is breathe through their nose as much as they can and see how it's different.
Yeah.
How do you feel differently through things like workouts, getting them to try to do it all nasal only at first. I like to bring back, like you mentioned, to about breaths per minute. I tell them, work towards 6 breaths a minute and see how that makes you feel. Just, take note while we're doing this stuff. When I'm putting people through breath sessions, it'll be a lot of, have them understand what they're feeling. Where do they feel things in their body? How does that connect to their mind when they're, when you start to go through in your head and everything starts to kind of freak out, try slowing your breath down. See how it feels. Get that doubling of the exhale to the inhale is always my favorite to tell people at first. And that 6 breaths per minute, that's one of the things I really go to as well right now. And it's really just to get them kind of anchored into their breath and realize that you don't have to spend hours a day focusing on this, but you can just spend a few minutes. And also that, we all have issues with it. As I said earlier, it's a practice and, you're not going to be able just to instantly change your state, but with a little work, it'll become easier and easier and easier. And I say, give it 2 weeks, give it a month and just watch. First thing I do is if you're exercising and you try to run a mile nasal only, you might only make it 200 meters the first time. A week, you'll be able to make it the full mile. You might drop in time, but in 2 weeks, you'll be right back running the same time. And then by the end of the month, you'll be running faster and feeling better at the end of it.
Yeah.
So trying to connect them on those levels.
Yeah, tremendously. You mentioned earlier too, I think before this, but about sound as well. Can you go into the depths of sound as well?
the sound, the hissing, the humming. I use a lot of ocean breath. Really, right now, most of my sessions, I get a whole lot of ocean breath. So the ocean breath is that ujjayi breath from yoga with some tension in the back of your throat, like you're fogging up a mirror, just with your breath, with your mouth closed. And it helps to slow the breath down, helps you control it. And that sound in your head is just a trigger to the nervous system to slow down and relax. And I love the hissing and the humming as well. The humming also helps produce nitric oxide in your nasal cavities, which is an immune booster for one, but it also helps get the oxygen more into your tissues like you were speaking about earlier. Right. So, using those 3 techniques, and everybody likes a different one. And now I'm telling people, hey, you're at home doing this stuff. You don't have to worry what anybody else thinks or hears. Just play with it. See what you like. When we're doing a recovery breathing technique session or something like that, I'll just have them play around, pick a hiss, pick a hum. We're going to inhale for 4 seconds, exhale for 8. And just figure out what you like, because everybody's a little different, and play around with it right now.
Yeah, 100%. When you do that, are you guiding rooms and just sort of saying, and I guess this is a question for both of you guys, like, what have you guys noticed in your personal experience with breath? So we'll actually center it towards all of us. What you guys find to work? Do you guys tinker with something and stay on that for a long time? Or are you always trying to find a new breathing technique? Do you find your breathing techniques through experience, other coaches, maybe peers, or learning? What's sort of your guys' main, pillar of success and how you've learned your own breathing practice?
I just go by experience, and then obviously we just chase rabbit holes.
Yeah.
For me, like it's been pretty autonomous regulation where I kind of, so for me, my down regulation is humming, but then my pre-workout is hissing. For some reason, it syncs up better with me. Like the hum is, I still like that old school deal. We used to plug our ears and just have that light pressure holding your eyes closed. I don't know why that class for me. I love that one. But it's just more pace of feeling. It helps me get my heart rate down quicker for me. Just out of I don't know a lot of the science behind it. I've seen there's a bunch of existential stuff too, as far as like the ohms and the amen, like that sound and how primal it is, and how it's obviously in all the cultures it is. But so for me it's pretty autonomous. But I do know the different protocols for both up regulation and down regulation, but those two, in regards to the hiss and the hum, that's how I use them.
Tremendously. Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Taylor?
A little both. Some of it, I take from reading, looking, I've read about as many books as I can find on breath and different techniques, and then playing with it. And I'll get on something and I'll just play with it for a month or so and see how it makes me feel. And then I might take that technique and start using it, with my classes that I'm using. But, I'll get stuff from other coaches, though. I was on a breath session with another XPT coach out at Deuce Gym, Kimmy Moss. She did a session last week, and I sat in on there, and she did a technique that I'd never done before. And I was telling her, I was like, man, I love that one. That was pretty cool. A double inhale using your nose and your mouth. And I was like, I like that. I was like, I've done it with just the nose, or just mouth. I was like, I was like, I like the way you, so I've been playing with that a little bit for the last few days in my morning routine. So I'll just kind of take something, get on it and go into it.
What does she have? So it's like, is it like that?
It's like, so it's kind of this 3-part little breath. So I've done a lot of the double inhales with, which is that breath's one of my favorites, which Mark Roberts with XPT taught us back about a year ago. We put us through a session, and I was like, shit. I was like, that was a great one. And so I've been using that a lot, and I started using that a lot in my workshops and sessions with people.
I love that.
Much more advanced technique. So I kind of wait, I'll tailor what I'm doing with classes based on who's there, how long, It's a bunch of new people. I'm going to keep it more mellow, but I'll kind of bust things out depending on who's there and how much work I've done with them.
For sure. Do you guys look at that mechanically when you guys are doing like a super vent, or are you guys just trying to get the air in?
No, I'm looking at mechanically. I want it to stay. I still want people, breathing in that horizontal, not just doing the upper chest breathing,
Right.
because that, you know, it's putting dysfunction on top of dysfunction, and then it just makes
Right.
their patterns work throughout their daily life. And as much as I love all those techniques, you're breathing naturally most of the time. So I think to try to get someone doing a proper breathing pattern throughout the day is really more important than anything else.
Yeah, tremendously. I've gotten away from, I haven't been doing the super vent. I think everyone's a little bit different in those senses, right? It's more for me, it's more of, I like doing some hypoxic holding or anything that I do in before a workout, just to very quickly just alert the body, sort of get myself systemized in that. And then nasal breathing takes care of anything whenever you elevate speed, right? If you elevate any sort of quickness or walking and speed walking movement, anytime your heart rate goes up, you can maintain nasal breathing. I always tell people you'll learn about breathing very quickly, you know. So it's I think that's sort of putting stressors or stimuluses in front of people and getting them into a position of understanding that. And then you get to have this conversation, right? You can kind of tinker and learn and make up stuff. Yesterday I was doing I don't know what I was doing yesterday. I was doing like a full exhale, imagining that I was creating a sponge, right? So if I were to create that full exhale and complete it, where my diaphragm would flatten out, I was trying to think about organs and lungs would be the sponge. Can you guys kind of visualize that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Whether it worked or not, I went swimming in a lake right afterwards. So, you know, I thought it went pretty well. But no, I think that again, I think that's beautiful stuff. And there's some golden nuggets in that for sure. As you look towards right now and what's happening in terms of society, a lot of stuff that we're teaching at MindStrong is trying to understand that the mind is a puzzle in itself, right? It's something that is extremely hard to comprehend, and it's evolving through experiences every day in the moment, right? Like today is truly a new day, and tomorrow will be a new day. So we're transitioning into these new stimuluses, these new experiences. Now the problem with that is that we have, depending on how old you are, you have a blanket of experience, right? And you have this massive amount of things that have taken place in all of our histories and our lives. So, you know, we bring in this person of today from the choices of yesterday. And so one of the things that we've been talking about, and to try to keep it very relevant for the time at hand, is you fall to the layer of understanding of the tools that you've been taught. And so we're looking at this in a situation where breath is a tool, very simply. Right. And so people are starting to come to breath work in this certain time. Right. And so we need to help people get to that. We need to help people become more understanding of it, because there's chaos taking place. So this is the part of the brain I was just talking about where we have now triggered ourselves through uncertainty. And the problem with uncertainty is that if you can't see things in the future to be certain, it makes the now very, very frustrating. And this is the part of a stoicism, if you will, of being outside of our control, right? And so you're looking at a global situation right now, which is insane, right? We've never seen this as a human history, for us at least, right? We're looking at a global thing of uncertainty. And I think inside of that uncertainty, there's no better time than to truly practice these stoic practices, these long-lasting practices of breath, movement, basic needs of nutrition, sleep, finding ways to connect and have these thought-provoking conversations, and really dialing into very basic necessity-type ways of living. And in this specific conversation that we'll get out to the world, it's about breath, right? And you guys have mentioned some amazing tools, and just first and foremost about, well, if you don't understand exactly what we're talking about, just recognize first throughout your day, do you realize that you're breathing through your nose or through your mouth? And do you feel like you have sound, right? Is it too loud? Is it anxious? Is it fast paced? And then what you guys are both saying, if you notice any of that, that's awesome, because uncertainty of today's world is giving you acknowledgement of a tool, which in this case, we're talking about breath. So for right now, if you need that moment, okay, you need that minute in your day, well, 6 breaths a minute, you know, there's that to you, Taylor, there's a minute and an hour, focus on it. And we're trying to stress at this moment, let's get through the nose and let's focus on it, right? Because if we go gnarly on it, we'll talk about all of our our breathing tools that we've had. But that's where I'm sort of seeing things as just simplifying and getting your nervous system into a state where you can get into control. Because if you don't, everything outside of what's happening right now is probably one of the most uncertain times we've experienced. And that has a crazy template to trigger all of our primal uncertain parts of our brain through not only our personal experiences, but human history's experiences. And that's where people tend to get a little overwhelmed in the current moment. So I think that understanding that and then tying it into some of the things that you guys are talking about is very important for all humans.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, that the uncertainty and the change we're going through, those are massive triggers to people to go into that fight, flight, or freeze aspect of it. And I think a lot of people are just panicking, or they're going into somewhat of a freeze right now. And the breath allows you to, that's really, you know, we can't control any of these things, but we can control our responses, and we can control how we show up. And we can use the breath to put us in a more stable state to show up for those around us, because our family, you know, people you live with, people you converse with, you know, they're also feeding off of you and mirroring your responses, especially if you have kids and they see your anxiety building and that stress, that's going into their system. They're seeing that as well. Right. So if you're breathing erratically and you are just kind of in a panic mode, they're going to be in the same way. If you calm your breath down, even if you're not necessarily saying anything to them, they're going to see you as a more stable, calming force in the moment. And they're going to be the same way as well.
I love it. Pete, what do you think from your experiences of, you've literally been in the most high intense environments in the athletic world. You know, what have you take from that to how you've intuitively learned how to control and calm your mind and your body, and how that could go feeding off of what Taylor just said, of what you could be doing of leading, right? Because you've had to do those situations where you're leading in locker rooms, or those certain situations where you want people to feel your confidence. When you look at that at like a family level, what are some of the things you've picked up on, or something that people could take in to sort of keep their mind and breath focused on portraying that confidence?
I wouldn't say it as much as like a leading from a breath standpoint. Obviously, I think like controlling your physiology, your demeanor, all those kind of things come from a foundation of breath work and all that kind of stuff, and that understanding of your awareness when you're in control, when you're out of control. I think all that's tied together. I'm not really sure at the gauging of your question as far as how it applies to NFL locker room, I guess, in those situations. But because I really only spent the last 2 years with breath work, let alone like in-game, like protocol, like slow your heart rate, things along those lines, to get into nose to mouth, to get back to nose, so I know I'm recovered and my nervous system's recovering, that kind of thing. But I mean, just, I guess I'm going to regress back to what we started talking about as far as like this time and space we have now to build a foundation. Mm-hmm. And if you kind of, I've been personally, how I look at it, I've kind of just reverse engineered. Like we always talk about like basically nature's hierarchy of needs for us right now. Like you can go whatever, 3 minutes without oxygen, you can go 3 days without water, you can go X amount of days without food. Like if you reverse engineer that, now you understand what's necessary. If people just understand the necessity of the breath and how functional it is and how incredibly impactful it is to every cell in your body, then you go on to the step, like go through your routines and your habits. Like, are you hydrated or are you stimulated? Like, what's your first choice in the morning? Then after that, control your diet. Then after that, I think the biggest thing right now, after you have that, again, that primal foundation of that, what affects your actual organism, your body. After that, you need to control the diet of what you intake from a data and news standpoint. And once you, like, that's where you need to start. So I think just with how I've gone through my life as a professional athlete and anything, just chasing edges and that kind of deal, I guess the function of breath has slowly climbed the priority for me. And now that I've seen the benefits of it, not only from like an everyday living standpoint and like just me being more calm, less anxiety, those kind of deals, because a lot of professional sports is high anxiety, keep your job, perform, what have you done for me lately type of stuff. So breath work has been incredibly useful for me there. And then I chase the edges and like hydration, sleep, food, and diet. But now with this space that we have now, this calm, like it's obviously human nature to watch the news and tune in 5 times a day and look at the death count and infection count and those kind of things. And that's just going to create a negative feedback loop. So you got to control your input of what you're watching, what you're reading, those kind of things. And I think that's where a lot of the uncertainty needs, like you need to just understand your inputs and eventually shift that into more information, knowledge, learning, creativity. And that's where I think a lot of people are going to create some incredible habits during this time. And again, I hope it starts with habits of breath work, habits of hydration, nutrition. And once you start feeling good, it makes it easier to make all those positive decisions as far as your body. And then that obviously will lead into leadership and those things down the line. But I think you have to have a strong foundation. I think that's what we should use this time for.
That's awesome, man. I think that that was awesome. I love having this conversation with you boys. To kind of tie a bow on it, Taylor, can you give a tangible breathing circuit that people could do if we look at the morning as starting your morning off and with hydration and getting that hydrated level into you, like you just talked about, Brian, and then maybe a practice that we could take with us or people who are listening could take with them and starting tomorrow with just a short little morning breath routine that you've really been seeing people have success with. Could you sort of take us through that or show or give people an idea of how that would look protocol-wise?
Yeah, I'll give 2 here. One, when you're kind of stressed out, to really kind of drop you down quick. And then morning routine, I think for people who have never really done breath work, 3 minutes of box breathing is probably the best thing you can do to start. And box breathing is just, we're going to inhale we'll start out 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, and hold for 4 seconds. So just a box. Mm-hmm. And set a timer, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. 3's easy for anyone to do. You can do it before you even get out of bed. And I think that's a great way to set your mind and be stable to help, not let the day run over you, to just set your priority for the day.
Yeah.
A little technique, if you're stressed, this is one I like to just use beginning of some of my stress routines. So also as a recovery routine, after workouts and like that, it's just 3 big breaths in and out of the mouth, just forceful, powerful breaths. Then in through the nose, out through the mouth. And then start slowing it down. Start going in for 3, out for 6. Do about a minute of that, then in for 4, out for 8. So basically 3 minutes there. Do a minute of each. And then on those 6 and 8 minute, do that hissing or humming if you want.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great way to downregulate in 3 minutes.
That's awesome. It's awesome. You can clearly see that and do that. So I love it, boys. That was a good time to jump on a call with you guys. Does anyone have anything to add or anything that we feel like we left out?
Appreciate the inclusion, Harv.
Yeah, man. I found a way to get you in.
Thank you.
Hey, you did pretty well too, Pete. I mean, I thought Taylor and I, took the show, but for the most part, hang in there.
I can boost it up a little bit.
So no, thanks a lot, Taylor, for
thanks for having me on. Yeah, this is fun moving from Instagram over here.
Yeah, we figured it out though. So,
hey, we had to adapt like everybody like we're doing right now.
Adapt or die. Adapt or die. Well, hey, I hope you guys enjoy it, folks, and we look forward to continuously pushing forward breath work in the community and helping people out. So take care.